awake and everything's good and copacetic. It looks like we're coming through on the internet, but you guys know me. I like to wait and make absolutely sure that everything is totally copacetic and coming through before I act. Just got to make sure. And it looks like everything is good. Yes, there we go. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon, good evening, good day, salutations. How's everything going? Are y'all right? You hanging in there? It's Wednesday. That's hump day. That's what they call it. Let me give a shout out to everyone who makes this show possible. First of all of our friends at ZT.com, ZHITEA. Their tea kind of rules. Check out their tea. You can get some of it wholesale because of the pandemic, which is awesome. So please do check out their tea. ZT.com, ZHITEA.com. Also, our friends over at triageoil.com. They make amazing pain oil. That's TRIAGE oil.com. Thank you for the most recent care package, Triage Oil. I appreciate it very much. Their pain oil is topical, and you can put it on a burn. You can put it on a bug bite. 'Tis the season, right? And it really does work wonders. I use it on my neck, and it has helped my neck more than anything else has ever helped it before. That's no embellishment. That's the truth. You guys have heard me mention I was in a really bad car accident in 2013. My neck has never quite been the same. And this oil, anyway, the oil really works wonders. TriageOil.com. Maybe you're thinking, Ron, do you have any oil that I can ingest? Yes, I do. RareNaturalsCBD.com. That's with an S. RareNaturalsCBD.com. They have oil that you put in your beverage. You can put it in your water. You can put a little drop under your tongue, and it soothes you, and it's all natural CBD oil. It's great after a workout. It's great if you feel a headache coming on. It'll help prevent that. That's what I use it for a lot. And if you go to their website, RareNaturalsCBD.com, use the promo code Lucy at checkout for 30% off. What? Yeah. So use the promo code Lucy at checkout. You get 30% off. That website again, RareNaturalsCBD.com. All right. Without further ado, I'm real excited to talk to my guest today. And we're going to talk about the news of the day. And we're also going to talk about the Draft Jesse initiative in regards to Jesse Ventura that he's a part of. Please welcome to the show, Richard Idris. Richard, what's up, man?
Hey, not too much. Just hanging in there, enjoying the hot and humid summer in Concord, California.
Did I say your name right?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
good.
You're good.
All right. Perfect. Good to see you. And we're going to be talking a lot about Draft Jesse and what it's all about. You're going to fill me in on some stuff, and we're going to talk about it, the theme of it as well. But first, we're going to talk about some news of the day. We're going to get our news on real quick. I got a couple stories picked out for you, buddy. And we're gonna news it up. We're gonna news it up. So you've already heard about this, Kamala Harris.
Ooh.
She's the VP pick. She's the VP pick. Here you go. Here's what she tweeted about it. Joe Biden can unify the American people because he spent his life fighting for us. And as president, he'll build an America that lives up to our ideals. I'm honored to join him as our party's nominee for vice president and do what it takes to make him our commander in chief. Well, let me ask you. First of all, because she was my guess. She was my prediction, and I'm not trying to take... I mean, a bunch of people predicted her, too.
Yeah, I'm not shocked.
Yeah, I mean, was she your top pick, or were you or as far as guesses were? Not your top pick, I won her, but...
It's, to be honest, yeah, more or less. This whole month and a half has felt like they turned the vice presidency into the Bachelorette. It's just kind of what it felt like to me. But I felt like it was always kind of in the cards for her. I mean, the Hillary Clinton donors chose her back in 2017 as their candidate. That's a pretty clear signal that she was probably going to have some pull on the ticket if there was any chance,
I mean, I thought, and yeah, you're right about how they dangled the vice presidency. I mean, I was getting to the point where I was like, they're going to they're going to be like, you have to elect Joe Biden to find out who the vice president's going to be. We're going to cancel all the debates. I think they're definitely going to try to do that anyway. And they're going to be like, you have to vote for him first. It's like the ACA bill. They're like, well, you have to let us pass it to find out what's in it. They're like, oh, you have to elect Joe Biden. Then we'll tell you who the VP is.
Is it the one behind door number 1 or door number 2?
Yes.
God.
And yeah, that's the thing, man. You pointed out she was like the chosen one back in the day, and they kept trying. I mean, the entire primary was just them giving us a new flavor of the week spelled WEAK and just being like, Kamala? Like, no. Beto? No. I mean, no. He's really, when his opponent's not Ted Cruz, it's not as appealing anymore. All right. How about Buttigieg? No. CIA? No. All right. How about Liz Warren? No. How about Liz Warren again? Still no. Still no. It's actually, the more we find out, the more, yeah, definitely no. Like, all right, everyone's getting behind Biden, and then we'll figure the rest out later. That's essentially what happened.
Right. And I love, too, that her tweet there, what she says, Biden's been fighting for us his whole life. What wasn't it her who said that she was the one who was bused to school and he was fighting against that? So, yeah, I mean, anyone who's paying attention should be kind of astounded at the tonal shift, right? And she'll just say that's politics. But, I mean, maybe politics should be a little different then.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. If this is the norm, this needs to change.
Yeah.
This grossly needs to change. I mean, well, you know what she reminded me of? And I think you and I are the same age. Do you remember the original Power Rangers show?
Oh, God, yeah.
So, like, the bad guy in the Power Rangers was Rita. And every episode, Rita would, like, send a monster to Earth. And the Power Rangers would like beat the monster. Like Rita never mixed up her strategy. Every time she was like, I got a monster. They're not going to be able to figure this out. There's 5 of them on one, but they'll never be able to figure this out.
And if the gerrymandered Electoral College wins again, oh no.
But Rita never mixed it up. And then every single time when she lost again, she's like, well, you win this time, but I'll be back. And she disappeared in a cloud of smoke. I think like Kamala's like that in politics, like, you win this time, voters, but I'll be back. And now she's in the VP pick, and she's like, that's how she's appeared again. I don't think it's going to change. I mean, it's so interesting that the past like 8 or so years, they have picked VP picks that are not going to appeal to one new person. There is nobody who is thinking about staying home that's not going to stay home now, probably. There's just nothing's changed. Well, to quote Joe Biden himself.
I was thinking about that recently, and I realized something, and I mean, it is kind of obvious, but right, so they signal to the base with something like identity politics, but really who they're roping in are, Republican donors, Kamala Harris was the only Democrat who got Stephen Mnuchin as a fundraiser, right? As a donor. The policies all align more with the conservative end of the Democratic Party, the like neoliberal, neoconservative establishment. It's they're pivoting right, but they're signaling left to try and keep us unaware. That's what's going on. So it's like they are expanding the base. They're just expanding in the direction that none of us really want. And I think it's a pretty clear sign we should go somewhere else.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Well, and so much of that quote unquote base is already there. I mean, most Wall Street owns both parties, and that's been the case for a long time. I mean, it's like when you bet on both teams, you can't lose.
Yeah, pretty hard.
All right, so let's move on. I wanted to point this out. Well, here, actually, I'll go here first. I have some good news, so we'll do the good news last. And here's the bigger thing. Right now, everyone's bickering about, people are just, I mean, I don't know what you've seen so far, but I've seen on social media just so many people where they're just like, I'm with Biden and Harris, and if you're not, you're a moron and you're an asshole and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, wow, that's really, you should go door to door with that. That's going to win over.
Yeah, what a great message,
all these moderate Republicans are going to love that. All these moderate Republicans you claim exist and we're trying to get, you're going to win them all with that. Like, who are you voting for? I'm undecided. Well, that's because you're a fucking moron. Here's some literature. Fuck you. Like, it's like,
I mean, and a lot of these folks who are vocal online too live in, the quote unquote safe states. So it's like, why are you so worried about a couple of people in California and New York who are saying that they're not going to vote Democrat when those seem to be a shoo-in? Shouldn't you be focused on Phone banking, getting out the vote in like Pennsylvania, Michigan. Seems like Texas is a toss-up. Like, and what a great message if you're going door to door with that one.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember, like, let me ask you if your memory is the same as mine in this. Do you remember, like, before 2016, it was actually among people who were on the left who, you know, wanted true systemic change and wanted to strategically get there and realized that, you know, neither party was really their friend. It was smiled upon if you lived in a quote unquote safe state, or the better way to put it is just a decided state where you voted against the oligarchy. Like, I remember that used to be smiled upon. Like, you would talk to people and it wasn't an uncommon conversation where someone would be like, well, you know, I'm voting for Obama because I live in a swing state. And then the other person would be like, oh, you know, I'm voting third party because I live in New York. Like, that used to be smiled upon. And then from 2016 until now, all of a sudden, people forget about the Electoral College until it's convenient for them to remember it. And now it's like your public enemy number one when you talk about that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, obviously they know something that isn't expressed publicly in the media if they're so worried about people in safe states not voting blue. That's I think the main takeaway. I mean, what's the name of that map? It's the United States of Apathy. If you ever Google that, there's a map that just shows if no one was a candidate, all the counties across the nation that they would have won. And it's like, you look at California and only the Bay Area is blue. The rest of the state is just gray. No one would have won. If staying home meant nobody won, no one would have won California. And like same with Texas is like, Arizona was completely gray. Like a lot of this country just doesn't give a shit because the two parties don't offer anything worth caring about.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah.
It's like you're trying to, I mean, it's always, well, let's try to appeal to the moderate Republicans. Let's try to appeal to this. Let's try to appeal to that. How about we try to appeal to half the country that stays home? How about we try to appeal to them? And how about instead of wagging your finger at somebody who didn't vote the way you feel that they should have voted, how about trying to appeal to the people that stay home by, you know, offering them something?
Yeah.
Crazy sentiment. But here's the thing. Here's the big thing that's looming right now amidst all of this. People's City Council of Los Angeles tweeted this. Here's what's going to go on come the end of September. 300K in Los Angeles are going to lose their homes. 1 million in California. 40 million nationwide. They're all at risk of being evicted in the coming month. And the tweet goes on to say, this is not the kind of system we want to live under. This falls on all elected officials at the local, state, and federal levels. Utter disregard for humanity. And I'll give this message right now, you know, to the people who, you know, that they're for Biden and Harris. They want to see Trump out of office, which, you know, I get wanting Trump out of. I don't want to see Trump be president any longer. I mean, it's disgusting. Unfortunately, I just don't want to see the other group be president either. So it's a loss no matter what. It's just a different. I mean, it's just a different type of loss, and you just got to plan for the loss. But I'll tell you what: if you plan on voting for Biden, this right here should be a huge concern of yours, because with the pandemic, there's going to be a lot of voting by mail going on, which, and if a bunch of people lose their homes because nothing's done about it, Trump is for sure going to win again. That goes without saying. And that's just like an objective electoral observation. So, you know, all these people who are, you know, telling everybody who's not for Biden Harris to go screw themselves and is wagging their finger at people to the left and people to the right, instead of doing that, maybe try to do something about this. Because if this happens, your dude is for sure going to lose.
Yeah, that's an angle no one really seems to care about, right? Like I saw a tweet the other day of someone saying they ended a long-term relationship, and now when they moved away, they don't have enough time to change their voter registration, so how are they going to vote by mail? And that ballot goes to their ex's place. And it's like there's edge cases like that you know, the system doesn't account for. And I mean, 40 million people losing their homes, that's a lot of ballots that aren't going to get sent to the right place. And a lot of people that probably are going to do something other than vote to try and change things at that point. I would be a little scared if I was a landlord at that point. Gun sales went way through the roof this year. for a lot of different reasons. And it seems really stupid to me that Congress has not acted on this sooner.
It's beyond.
My God.
I mean, it is so ridiculous the way this entire pandemic has been handled, where they're giving it all to the banks. They're just ignoring the people. I mean, I don't know. I mean, although with my 1,200, I did buy a yacht and a condo. I don't know what you did with yours, but I did. I mean, I'm still swimming and all that. But eventually, that $1,200 we got like 5 months ago, that's going to dry up eventually. Crazy thought, but it's unreal. And now that they're not doing anything about like the upcoming housing crisis. We'll see what happens. Hopefully something is done and people try to stay in their homes. Trump mentioned it in his executive order, but really all he actually called for was just, he recommended it. He was like, hey, HUD, maybe this is like bad. And maybe the health people will be like, hey, if a bunch of people are homeless, it might be bad for COVID. Maybe you should act on that. That's essentially what was in there. So really, at the end of September, potentially 40 million people around the country going to lose their homes.
Yeah, it's a depressing thought. It's also, I feel bad for NIMBY folks because they're going to be having heart attacks too. No, I don't really feel bad for them, but here in California, that's going to be a mess. We don't have the infrastructure to take care of the homeless population right now. And the best infrastructure for that would be to give them homes, right? So going backwards isn't going to help.
Well, even like there were all those movements to try to make that happen, like the no vacancy. There was like the no vacancy movement throughout all of California, where they were urging, homeless people to get hotel rooms and stuff like that. And, there was a little of that happened in California throughout the state. A little of it happened here in LA, but it was nowhere near enough. It was just numerically, they just didn't do enough. And then they pretty much just stopped. And now it's just, the freight train's coming. This entire thing, it's like you look at the pandemic and the upcoming climate catastrophe and the upcoming, what we're going to be faced with economically as a result of all this. And it's sort of like, if someone asked me like, just what does the current situation feel like to you? To me, it's almost like, we're standing at the bottom of a hill and there's this big freaking forest fire, dude. And it is coming at us full force, and it's like going, and we're like, we got to figure something out. We got to move soon. That fire's coming right at us. It's taking up everything in its wake. And someone else comes up to us and they have their hands out, and in one hand is a cup of warm water in one of those Dixie cups you get at a gas station, so like just a little cup of water. And then in their other hand is a twig, and they go, pick the lesser evil. And you're like, I feel like we need an entirely different solution. Like, I feel like I don't know what that's going. Pick the lesser evil, or this is all your fault. Yeah, you know what? You have fun with this. I'm gonna go try to figure out like a real solution to all this, because that fire is coming right freaking for us. And the longer term solution I see is kind of fixing this place one community at a time. Like yesterday I had on Sarah for Portland, who's running for Portland mayor. And it's like, she has a plan to kind of get them out of this thing. And that's what you need. You need people being active in their communities, whether it's running for office, whether it's being an activist, whether it's like just getting involved in a community initiative, and just slowly rebuilding this place one community at a time.
That's where it's so damaging that the social media tools that we have now are so rigidly controlled. Because for the longest time, people have been able to check out of local politics because it's harder to pay attention to than just tuning into TV. And then there was like a brief period where you could open up YouTube and find alternative opinions real easy. And suddenly the adpocalypse happened, and now we're kind of back to square one almost. And you see that replicated in like all these fact checkers, mediating conversations on Twitter only in one direction. Labeling like RT a media source, like a state-sponsored media source, but not Radio Free Europe, for like pretty arbitrary reasons, things like that. It's just, I mean, all of that impacts our ability to get information that's not in line with mainstream narratives. And a lot of times that includes local candidates that are offering alternative viewpoints, because like there's not really local papers everywhere anymore.
Right.
And the ones that exist are getting bought out and cover like vanity stories.
Yeah,
so
or they're just like, they're just online and nobody even knows that they exist really. And I mean, yeah, it's tough, man. And it's really interesting too, like how we're taught about voting, where it's like we are taught like our priorities are just completely opposite of what they should be as far as how you're going to use a vote. Like we're taught whenever somebody says, well, if you didn't vote, you have no right to complain. Like we've all heard that cliche in our lives, which I disagree with anyway. But even that sentiment itself is totally backwards because they're always referring to presidential when they say that. It's not like it's like, well, if you didn't vote, you have no right to complain. Really? Yeah, that's right. Who did you vote for school board? They're not referring to that. They're referring to president. That's all they mean. And it's the total opposite of where our priorities should be. Like it should be voting locally should be the first thing you're taught to do. It should be the first vote that you cast. And you should just be taught how freaking important it is. I'm not going to say that corruption can't happen on the local level. Of course it can, and it does. But there's just so much more transparency and accountability because it's your freaking neighborhood.
Yeah.
And when you compare that to what goes on at the state and federal level, I mean, it really is. It's significantly different. And there's a lot more you can do when you just start right in your backyard.
Yeah, I mean, there's people would argue, and I'm kind of in agreement with this, that we ought to focus on both fronts, right?
Sure.
So that's sort of the approach that I take, and that's also why I've been involved with like the campaign at the presidential level. But absolutely, folks need to pay attention at the local level because the presidential elections turn into a pageant for a reason, because we all end up focusing on that through all the debate season. And then we get to the voting booth, and all the research we've done is we've looked at the party lines of these local candidates usually. And I mean, I admittedly, I've tried to get better about this myself, but I still do a pretty shitty job about keeping up on local elections. So I'm trying to do that research myself. And a lot of folks should just be honest about that and try and get a little more involved. You'll be surprised at how many races folks run unopposed, and it's just like stupid. Like totally. A lot of local sheriffs, things like that.
Yeah. And it makes a difference. And don't get me wrong, I'm guilty of it too. I mean, every time I get a ballot, I'm not
like, totally who are these folks?
Right. I mean, totally. And I think like that's inevitable, but I think it's like, when a like-minded person who's an activist in the community is running for city council, it's like, try to get hip to that stuff. And I'd like to see more people do it. Like, I'd like to see more people try to run for city council, try to run for mayor, and really think about just mobilizing one community at a time. And it doesn't just have to be around electoral politics. It can be around, activism and movements too. So I want to do one more story with you, and then I want to get into Draft Jesse, what it's all about, and we're going to get into some bigger picture stuff here. But one of the things I talk about a lot on my show that's kind of part of the mission of this show is municipal broadband and city-owned internet, which is basically just another way of saying municipal broadband. And this is an important issue to me because it's around the free and open internet, which without a free and open internet, shows like this would not exist. It'd be horrible for the idea of media democracy, and the internet is a utility in our lives that we rely on. The pandemic is making that abundantly clear. And there's some places in the country that already have great city-owned internet. And here's the thing, some places don't. And now with the pandemic, we're really seeing what happens. I covered a story in Philadelphia where Comcast in this part of Philadelphia has a monopoly over internet access in this place. And now kids are going to school online because a lot of the schools aren't opening yet. And some places, some residences, they don't have internet access. They just don't have access to decent internet, or they can't afford it. And they need to go to these hotspots so that their kids can learn. Well, Comcast is just deciding not to have these hotspots because they can do that. And they just decide if we don't make the profit margins we want to see, we're just not going to build somewhere. We don't give a hoot about a community. So here you have Comcast getting to decide whether our children learn or not. Comcast, this big for-profit entity. Well, here's why this is a piece of good news. One of the biggest municipal broadband success stories is in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Here's what they're doing in Chattanooga right now. Chattanooga uses municipal broadband to connect students in a historic announcement. Yesterday, an announcement via a live stream, which, by the way, that live stream loaded great for everybody because in Chattanooga, Tennessee, they have some of the best internet in the world at a price that is less than what most people pay for their cable. Why do they have that? Because they've had city-owned internet for years and years because of an electrical grid, and they have one of the biggest success stories for city-owned internet in the country. Anyway, all right, so in a live stream, the city of Chattanooga, Hamilton County Schools, and the fiber arm of the Municipal Utility Electric Power Board, that's the grid we're talking about, announced a partnership to provide free internet access and hardware to the 17,700 homes with school children on free or reduced lunch programs in the county. It's called HCS Ed Connect. So that's what happens when you have city-owned internet. And hey, Chattanooga is actually a really cool town. I don't know if you've ever been there. It is a really super cool town. But it's not like Chattanooga, Tennessee is some bastion of progressivism. I mean, but here they are. They're connecting students. They're connecting children. They're not leaving anyone out of the digital divide because they have city-owned internet and because they know that this is a utility in people's lives and they're treating it as such. Imagine if we treated other utilities the way we treat the internet. Hey, Comcast gets to decide who does and doesn't have garbage pickup. Comcast, if they decide there's not enough money and them picking up your garbage, you just don't get garbage pickup. That sucks.
Sorry, it's too hard to pump water to where you're at. So
right. Yeah.
Better set up some rain dishes, I guess.
Right. And that's a prominent example because around the country, people are trying to privatize their water supply.
Yeah.
And you see what happens when that happens, i.e. Flint, Michigan. They got that private contract. Flint hasn't had clean water in years as a result. Mm-hmm. They still don't. And it's a good thing we have these awesome corporate media outlets that talk about that every day.
Yeah,
every day they have that ticker that says, hey, Flint doesn't have clean water. We got to do something. Every day they have that. It's
like, what about that glass that Obama drank,
Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Yeah,
everything's cool. He drank the water.
He drank
the water. Yeah.
It was like one of those like droplet beaker things that you get in like high school chemistry. I'm like, oh yeah, it's good. It's great. Oh yeah, it's fantastic. It
just turns around, just spits it out immediately.
See ya. So anyway, what's happening in Chattanooga? That's what happens when you have city-owned internet. When you have city-owned internet, you can build hotspots and you can get internet directly to people's homes when they need it for school. When you don't have city-owned internet, Comcast gets to decide whether your children learn or not.
And that example with the hotspots is a great example of exactly what will happen if the post office is gone too, right?
Yes!
Where Amazon or FedEx or UPS decide it's not cost effective, good luck getting a money order, sending a package, running a business.
Absolutely. You know what? Somebody suggested this to me after a show, and I think it might have actually been in San Francisco. No. It was in, I think it was in San Jose. But they were like, what if, because they know, I'm really big on municipal broadband. And they were like, what if we did all of the municipal broadband hotspots for different cities? What if we built them all at post offices?
That is a good idea.
Right? I was like, dude, that's an amazing idea. And I feel like
make them hotspots, make them ISPs and banks. Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Well, get a public bank.
Yeah.
Get public banks, make those hotspots, make the post offices hotspots, and make the libraries hotspots, and then get the web to the point where it can also go into people's homes.
Yeah, I mean, so I used to live in Walnut Creek, and they've got some citywide wireless internet, and it's really bad, but at least it exists. Uh, but that's like a pretty wealthy area. So like I think their concern was pretty small. But I mean, the amount of the Bay Area is unique. We have pretty good internet here. But I mean, I've lived in parts of the country where the internet's terrible. Like I grew up in Utah for a lot of my life, and the internet was not great there until pretty recently because a lot of tech firms left California. Costs were too high. So it's just like the opportunities that you get education wise, just based off of the infrastructure, just noticeable. So I went to a decent school, but just the internet wasn't great until that school was built. And the value of the community was raised, right? Like it's either going to come based off of profit margins or based off of the government doing it. And I don't think we should wait for profit to be the motive.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting, though, when you look at it from an economic standpoint, like you said, it raises the value of a community. And that's why, like, for municipal
broadband, fiber into the neighborhood when the high school was built. Like,
oh, yeah. See, that's huge. And that's one of those things. Like, that's why municipal broadband is not really like you see people all across the political aisles that are in support of it. Because it's like if you want to look at it from the, capitalist economic point of view, you should still be for it because a free market supposedly likes competition. So why wouldn't you want competition to these big cable companies to make them, quote unquote, make a better product, which they're not going to do. They're just going to try to stop the municipal broadband from happening. That's what we've seen time and time again.
We gave them billions already to try and do it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. and yeah, exactly. That's exactly what they did. They ran off with it. And every community that gets it, it just raises the value of their community. Chattanooga bills themselves as Gig City USA now. And now when, we're already amidst a digital landscape because of stuff like the pandemic, that's going to amplify times 10. And now, that's going to increase things in Chattanooga. I mean, more people are going to be going there. It's just going to happen. And then there's parts of North Dakota that have it. I mean, basically anywhere that has a successful municipal broadband project, more people are going to go there.
Yeah. So
let's get to Draft Jesse. I want to get into what I brought you on to talk about today. And so just describe like nuts and bolts, like what is it?
Well, the People for Jesse, Draft Jesse Political Action Committee it's a campaign intending to draft Governor Jesse Ventura to run for the President of the United States. We originally started out as trying to draft him for the Green Party nomination, but after dealing with a pretty messed up process there, we elected to shift towards an independent run. And so what we're doing currently is we're gathering pledged electors. We can get 39 states. We can get approved write-in access plus DC for a total of 449 electoral votes. Potentially could be won by Jesse Ventura through a write-in campaign. So that's where we're at currently. We're gathering signatures. In California, we can put him on the ballot whether or not he signs the paperwork. And we're presenting to him all of the electors, that we've got. I can't show my hand strategy-wise, but we've got our methods, and we're getting in touch. And we're going to show him because he's told us before that if you write him in, he'll do the job. He mentioned that on Primo Nutmeg when he said he was doing a write-in. He would be writing himself in. He rescinded his endorsement of the Green Party. And so we're hoping that he'll live up to his end of the bargain. We're going to show him that he owes it to all these people. We have over 10,000 folks who signed a petition. That was more than any Green Party candidate got in terms of popular support. And we're going to show the governor that all these folks around the country, he owes it to them to make their votes count. And he just has to sign some paperwork to do it.
So looking at it like thematically, I, am intrigued by stuff like this, not just because I think more stuff like this should happen, but because I actually think it should be required. I think that nobody should be allowed to nominate themselves. I think that politicians should be recruited. And here's the deal. First of all, that was one of the ideas the Greeks had. One of the ideas they were toying around with when they were trying to figure out the idea of democracy was exactly that nobody can nominate themselves. They have to be recruited. People have to gather and say, we want this person. And then that person may reluctantly accept, but they kind of have a civic obligation to accept. I think that needs to be the law of the land. I really do. And I know some people might be, wow, Ron, that's pretty radical. That's a big shift. Yeah, look around you. You don't think we need one? And here's the second question. How could it possibly get any worse?
Yeah.
I mean, it could, but trying this out, how could trying this out make it worse? I don't see how it could. Imagine the 2020 primary, the Democratic 2020 primary, if the requirement was you had to be recruited. Imagine who wouldn't have been part of it. I mean, honestly, it probably would have been Bernie Sanders. It would have maybe been Marianne Williamson, maybe Andrew Yang, maybe Tulsi Gabbard. Those are, the candidates that had a big kind of grassroots following, that were all about their ideas, that wanted to see them up there. That would have been it. I mean,
there was like a pretty, I would say it's probably pretty astroturfed movement to draft Biden in 2016. So I could have seen that kind of coming back too, potentially.
Maybe.
But,
yeah.
A lot of those folks probably would have coalesced on one candidate. It wouldn't have been like this whole slap shot. It would have been 20.
Right. I mean, it wouldn't have been, it would have been a lot different. And it would have been, I just think infinitely better. Like it would have just been like infinitely better, where you would have had, and it's like, you can't nominate yourself for an award. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Like you don't get be like, my last album was killer. I'm putting myself up for this Grammy. You don't get to do that. You have to be nominated. It should be the same thing here. And it should be, and I got to say, I mean, I like Jesse Ventura. I'd be happy to vote for him. But even still, like, I'd like to say I'm like for the principle of it, regardless. Because I remember in 2008, there was a similar draft movement for Al Gore. And personally, I'm not really that big of an Al Gore fan. I wasn't then. I'm still not. And he wasn't my candidate of choice, at any point in 2008. But I still thought it was cool. Even back then, like, I read their website and I just thought it was cool. I was like, okay, that's interesting. These people think that Al Gore is the person to meet the moment. I'm curious as to why they feel that way. I'm going to read about it. And I think it's cool that here's a guy that, might not really want to get into the ring, but people are saying you're the person to meet the moment. That's intriguing to me. And I think that's how every candidate should get their shot. And I know, like, some people say, well, if you do that, only celebrities are going to be in the public spotlight. You're going to have all these celebrities running for office. First of all, we already have that.
Yeah.
We already have that. Second of all, it won't be that way. What it will be is that politicians, instead of proving themselves to donors, which is what they do now, they'll have to prove themselves to people.
Well, what I would also point out too is, I mean, we already know usually the folks that get the most politically involved there's not as much intersection with the crowd that checks out for celebrities until the general election, because those folks don't get involved in primary processes as much. So it's like the folks who are going to start these draft movements are going to be politically interested. And then also, let's change the media too, right? Like,
so, well, yeah, well, that's the other thing. You have to have a couple different things happen. Like, you have to have, you would have to have some policy around money out of politics.
Yeah,
because otherwise, you would have, like you said, these AstroTurf, like you would just have the Wall Street, making these fake recruitment campaigns. So
parties everywhere. Just
right. No kidding. With the Koch brothers pulling the strings with a smile on their face. But so it's not like, oh, we just have to do this and that's all that needs to happen. There needs to be other policy that falls into place with it. But if you had money out of politics and you had like, hey, you got to recruit your freaking candidates, they don't get to nominate themselves, I think you would have a better bench really freaking quick.
Yeah. And I mean, the people that are concerned, what if the person says no? Why not? If we're doing reforms like making drafting candidates mandatory, why not also instate ranked choice voting?
Yeah,
those things seem to really coincide with one another. You could draft your candidates in a ranked order, and then they would just get offered in the order. And if they refuse, it's the next one. That would be a way better option than what we've got currently. Right now, you're incentivized to be a career politician, right?
Well, they tell us that that's too complicated. That's what they tell us. They tell us
Sure.
that that's just too complicated for us. Because like when people go to a restaurant, they just look around, and if there's more than one thing they want on the menu or they're willing to eat, they just go, I can't possibly rank my decisions. I have to leave now. I have to go home. That's how it works.
It's true. I can't handle menus.
I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. So let's bring it back then to currently what's going on. Have you had any interactions with Jesse himself?
I can't tip my hand too much because I don't want to get anybody in trouble.
Okay.
But we've got our ways of getting in touch with the governor, and folks will be learning information. We'll say that, and we've got a healthy amount of electors. Where our most important thing right now is getting them for Texas.
Okay.
Because the Texas deadline is coming up. So like in the next 24 to 48 hours, folks, check out the draftjesse.com website. We've got a whole page on ballot access. There's instructions for how to be an elector for Texas. Yeah.
So how does a write-in work? Like how does a write-in work? I mean, I know like you can just write somebody in, but as far as how that's going to be counted or where it's recognized, there's a lot of red tape going on there that you guys have looked into. So what's kind of the anatomy on how that works exactly?
Yeah. So I got into this a little bit with Graham, but you would think that you would just write things in on your ballot and okay, that vote would count. But yeah, and there's only 9 states in the country where write-ins are just permitted off the bat. And in fact, there's 8 states that don't allow write-ins at all. You don't get to democratically choose. We give you an option and you pick. For the rest of the states, each state has its own process for becoming an approved write-in candidate. And generally what that entails is getting a slate of folks to pledge to be electors for that candidate, providing that they win the popular vote in that state. And it depends on the state. In Ohio, we have one form that everyone is signing, and it's like an e-signature thing. In Texas, everyone has to do an individual form. In California, we're all going to have to go get our forms notarized. That's going to be fun. But
it's almost like they make this difficult on purpose.
Yeah,
they don't want anything that threatens the two-party duopoly.
Yeah, the one saving grace is that the deadlines are pretty far out. You can get California's deadline is mid-October, and the amount of signatures that you need compared to independent ballot access is only equal to the number of electoral votes. So for the whole state of Utah, we need 6 folks to be electors. For Wyoming, I think it was 3, but now I'm being told that they are just permitting write-ins this year, which is exciting. They changed that in 2018.
So does any state have a more extensive signature threshold, or is that pretty much the lay of the land everywhere?
So the highest number is California needs 55 and Texas needs
because
38.
of the elect. Okay, so it's always based on the electors, then that's everywhere. There's no state that has some. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes there's a filing fee. If there is, we'll just pay for it and fundraise for that later if we need to. We've hardly ever fundraised on purpose because we wanted to show that this is a popular movement based off of momentum. The governor's campaign didn't use a lot of money, and we didn't want to take money underneath his name unless it was absolutely necessary. So we took money to send an ad to him in his local paper, which was honestly, that was a really effective way to get in touch with him in the first place. We finally were able to flag him down and get past his publicist and anyone else that was being a barrier or just not able to completely relay information. And that seemed to have changed his tone a bit publicly. He also recently received this huge 12-pound stack of thousands of letters asking him to run that was delivered straight to him. And we got confirmation that was given to him.
Well, I think he kind of, based on what I've heard him say publicly, it sounds like he, holds the same principle that, you and I have echoed during this show, where, I have heard him say, look, I'm not running But if I am recruited for the job, I would not. I would do the job.
And that's what we're doing. We're recruiting him. He's going to get his papers.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like I don't.
He hasn't dodged a draft yet, so
that's funny.
We're holding it to him.
Well, yeah, and I think this should be. I mean, what's that cliche that they throw out? Like you know, what's it like? Heroes are recruited and they're reluctant. And do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. I feel like I'm butchering a quote right now, and I don't know which quote I'm butchering, but I'm pretty sure I'm butchering a quote really bad right now.
One messed up game of telephone. It's fine.
Right. I mean, yeah, but people get the idea. But it's like, yeah, it's like this is because everyone loves to say, well, he's not running. He's not running. He's not running. It's just like, yeah, but he also said, I wouldn't not do the job if the American people speak. And he also, I think at one point he said he would write himself in. Yeah,
he said that when he was on Primo Nutmeg. His most recent comments when he talked about our movement, he said, I don't know what'll come of this, but I guess we'll see what happens next. He also pointed out we were warning him to prepare to be ready.
Did you?
Yeah, we did. We did warn him. He got a bit of a heads up.
I mean, dude, this should be the way politics works. And again, there needs to be other policies surrounding it. Otherwise, Wall Street's just going to make all these fake things. But, you know, it should be a grassroots movement saying you're the person. And if the person says, I really don't want the job, they're all the more qualified because they said that. This should be the lay of the land for everything. There's one exception to it. Don't try to recruit me for anything. That's the only exception. Only exception. Not me, but anyone else in the world, totally cool.
Yeah, not me, you guys.
Not me, you guys. Don't recruit me. Don't recruit me. There is enough footage of me on the internet saying I'm against private property, quoting anarchists. I'd lose because all those clips would be heavily publicized because I'd be the one publicizing them. I'd be like, you can't vote for this guy. This guy's nuts. Who tried to recruit him? But drafting other people, that's fine.
I'll take it.
Well, how did this idea come about? I mean, are you one of the founders of this or one of the?
So, I mean, originally what happened was Jesse Ventura said he was considering running for the Green Party nomination in late April. And there was an exploratory committee that was formed to figure out the possibility of that. And then there was a draft pack form called We Want Jesse. And I had filled out a Google form to be a volunteer for that pack. And they just kind of sat and spun their wheels in place. It's a rabbit hole of the amount of inaction and seeming either incompetence or sabotage that we dealt with from the leadership. And so a large portion of the volunteers decided that we should form a parallel organization to also try and draft Jesse so that we could have a website, post ads, redesign the website because we didn't think the one that they had was very functional or appealing. There was a lot of different things in that regard. Someone was trying to slander us by saying it was just to open a store, but no one had ever talked
What kind of store?
Someone completely unaffiliated with any pack put up Ventura 2020 t-shirts on Amazon. I don't know who the hell that was, but I'm assuming that is who set the precedent. But we never planned on opening a store. The person who filed the paperwork for the pack, whose name is on the FEC filings, she got like a free Shopify website. So that's the base that we used because
that's just really interesting that's like the route someone took. Like they're trying to open a store. Yeah. They're going to open a store around an election that's going to happen in a few months and just ride that store's gravy train until November. And then they're all going to retire because they'll all be millionaires. That's what's going to happen. That's what they're trying to do.
Selling merchandise for a guy who says he's not running and we're not going to campaign for him and try and draft him like that. No, the intent was always to like set up the campaign to get him to run. So we broke off and we formed, again, it was always a parallel organization. We had no intention to like sabotage them or to work against them. It doesn't make sense that you would work against a pack working for the same candidate, but that was the story they spread for a bit, which was kind of funny.
I mean, it's when you're trying to do something like this that's very nuanced. I feel like there's inevitably going to be a lot of growing pains, and this is someone who's totally an outsider who doesn't have any inside information to give any input one way or another.
Yeah,
But
it's not like we were bombarded with political consultants who gave us all the details we needed. It was like, I'm a debate coach and like a random stand-up comic in the Bay Area. And Melissa, she's a CEO of a private company that like sells condoms to people online and men's health and wellness. It's
so that's the store.
So
that's the store.
That
you guys wanted
we were gonna sell Ventura 2020 condom.
That's what it was. It was gonna be a limited edition condom. Jesse Ventura.
Oh Jesus, the body. No.
Yeah,
that's a great name for a condom.
Like wrestlers, they would always like stretch their shirts and stuff back in the day. So it's like, this is a condom, where it's like you just stretch it and stretch it, it doesn't break. 2020 condoms, and everyone's gonna be like, well, I gotta use one of these puppies.
That would be amazing.
All right, so it's all
been exposed.
It's all been exposed. Go home, folks. We figured it out. They just wanted to sell condoms.
But yeah, I would say this was a pretty grassroots movement. There's a lot of learning involved. There have been folks who've come and gone along the way because they've had to get back to their jobs.
Sure.
So nobody's been paid for this.
Mm-hmm. Other than all the condom pre-sales,
other than the Ventura 2020,
yeah, those condom. I mean, you guys are actually going to give Bezos a run for his money any day now with those.
Yeah, keep your eyes peeled for when we go public. No.
You guys have more condom pre-sales than Liz Warren has selfies. You guys are crushing it, and nobody knows.
But a lot of us were former burn. I was just going to say, a lot of us were former burners. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, so, like, again, going big picture, when you see what goes on, and I've only had so many peeks under the hood into electoral politics. I've had more peeks under the hood than I've ever wanted to have in my lifetime. And it has radicalized me, I guess you could say. And when you see the way that world works, what it takes to be a professional staffer, and you see what those jobs really involve, you see that there's so many people, they don't see the difference between working for a Joe Biden versus working for a Bernie Sanders. To them, it's just a job that has a paycheck, and that's just what they do. This is not the type of industry. Well, first of all, the fact that it's an industry right away is a problem, but this is not the type of industry that will ever bring about any kind of systemic change. So we really have to rethink the way we go about electoral politics and just do a complete overhaul. And I think getting money out of politics, ranked choice voting, and I'm going a step further now, and I'm saying you don't get to nominate yourself. You don't get to nominate yourself and then hire a staff out of a stack of resumes, and it's just about who's going to help you win the most. No, you have to get recruited. And that staff are going to be the people that are trying to recruit you. And hopefully most of those people are going to be completely outside of that world and have no experience in it.
Yeah. This is where I give a shout out to something like UBI for trying to make something like that possible. If we have sources of income that aren't tied to our employment, we're able to be more active about things that we care about.
Well, and that's something else. A UBI. I mean, I'm one of those people. I am for both a UBI and a federal jobs guarantee. I know a lot of people try to pit them against one another, and I'm for both. I mean, I think it's so misguided when you're for one and use that as a reason to be against the other, or vice versa. It just doesn't make any sense, because here's the thing. With all of the nominal quadrillions that Wall Street is worth, and yes, I said quadrillions, and that's real. I don't even know how many zeros are in a quadrillion, but I know it's a freaking lot. It's a freaking lot. Too many is right. And all of that can be traced back to the public's money. That's how Wall Street works. Giving everybody a real UBI is the equivalent. It'd be like if you and I were on a lovely California coastline, anywhere in the state. You can pick the place, man. I'll meet you there. And we decided that we were going to take a speck of sand underneath our thumbnail. We were just going to scoop our thumbnail, get a little speck of sand under that thumbnail, and take it away with us. Us taking that speck of sand is the equivalent of what it would be to give everybody a UBI. That's so we can afford it, is my point. We can afford it many times over. So you should totally be for both. Now, UBI is another one of those things where you also need to have some other policy with it. You need to have rent control. You need to have all these other things so that it doesn't just turn into, our dollar is just completely worthless because it's just like a bunch of hyperinflation, because everybody knows that you're getting a set amount of money and there's no value exchange with it. So you need policies around it for the UBI to be effective. But that doesn't mean a UBI, like it would totally be a great thing if it's implemented the right way. Same with the federal jobs guarantee.
Yeah, I mean, part of it too is just people conceptualize labor and money as being like always coupled, right? But
sure,
if you take that a UBI would be able to give people some flexibility to do what they want, a jobs guarantee could try and connect people with work that they care about more than work that would, pay them a bunch in that way. So if you reframe those things, maybe not everyone wants to be a trash man, but there are people that don't want to have to go to work and think really hard. So it's not like there's going to be a shortage of folks who want to do jobs like that are important.
Well, not just that, but I mean, you can
pay them accordingly. Like garbage people deserve a lot with that, especially during COVID with all the crap they're handling, Yeah,
no kidding, man. and it's one of those things too. Like you look at, for instances, there's all kinds of different ways on how a program could work, but you could totally have a feasible, for instance, where it's like, take people like you and I who are, in show business or whatever you want to call it. Say, you're writing on a show and then your contract ends, the show gets canceled or whatever happens. And this happens to colleagues of mine every day, colleagues of yours every day. Maybe you don't have another contract for a while, but rent's due and you need, you can go be like, oh, I'm going to go build solar panels until I get another gig, or I'm going to go do like whatever this is with the federal jobs guarantee. You can just be like, okay, I'm available for a little bit because I'm in between things and I want something to do. And well, here's something to do. I mean, there's just so many ways it could benefit our society. Same as a UBI.
That's why it'd be great to have a leader who is willing to try new ideas rather than someone who's ideologically inflexible,
Now you're sounding radical.
Yeah.
And it's almost like it's almost like if you got behind these types of people, more people would try to recruit their leaders instead of these horrific bought and sold politicians nominating themselves. I mean, Joe Biden has spent a political career. We can use him as an example. Joe Biden has spent a political career pleasing donors. I mean, you can find the footage of it. You can find footage of him. However many years ago it was, where he's like, I was ready to prostitute myself. His words. Yeah. His words. I am quoting him. His words. I'm ready to prostitute myself for the big money. That's what he wanted. That's what he was all about. That's all it was all about to him. And he spent a career proving himself to those people, not proving himself to voters, not proving himself to the electorate, not proving himself to the working class, proving himself to the donors. And now there is a chance where he might fail up all the way to presidency. Lauren Ashcraft pointed this out on the show when we were talking about it. She's like, it'll be such an amazing fail up story if Biden somehow ends up being president. Because first of all, he's not going to quote unquote win. I refuse to say Joe Biden wins because that would imply that this is actually an election. It's not. It's not Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. It is Donald Trump versus Donald Trump. And Joe Biden will be president if Donald Trump beats himself, which because of this pandemic, he might do that. Pre-pandemic, there was no chance of no. But now because of this pandemic, because it is such a topsy-turvy world, because it's so unprecedented, there is a chance that Donald Trump might beat himself. But that's the only way Biden's president, if Donald Trump beats himself. So it will be the ultimate failing up story. How can you look around at all this and not say we need radical systemic change to this gross system? And one of the pieces of that puzzle is drafting our candidates.
Yeah, I mean, compare a career politician who says he'd prostitute himself to Jesse, who literally wanted politicians to wear NASCAR suits with all their corporate donors on them, and decided not to run for a second term of governor because he was exhausted by all the media constantly dogging him. He wanted a private life for his kids while they were growing up, right? That's why he's always been so reluctant to get back into it. And like we said before, like that's kind of an admirable quality. Someone who's not concerned about the vanity of the office, but just like would do the job if they got nominated or written in. I'll take it. Shit. These other options are horrible. Give me something.
No kidding.
Howie Hawkins telling people in states that are dangerous to vote for Biden instead. It's what I heard recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm just like really grossed out by that. Are we really going to do the safe state strategy as a third party? Look at how well that worked in 2004. That made the Green Party a footnote after 2000. That just sad, man.
Well, and the thing is, and yeah, I mean, I was very disappointed how he got the gig, and I kind of felt like this is a huge missed opportunity because you have this new generation of people that are looking for an electoral solution. And the Green Party had a moment to really have somebody in 2020 who's going to get to that 5% threshold. And I just don't see Howie Hawkins getting there. I don't see him getting close.
He might get less than Stein got. It doesn't look like he's on the ballot in as many states as she was. And it's like, I don't really know what to say. We came at them with an option. And the thing came at them with an option, like...
See, I do think, I mean, I was hoping it was either going to be Dario or Jesse. I mean, I think Jesse Ventura would get to 5% on his own. He would get to 5% on his own. So he would get you that 5%. I think Dario, I think if all the Green Party put all the resources behind a Dario Hunter and, if he really, mobilized, had a strong campaign, I think he could have gotten there. We'll never know, but I think Dario could have gotten there. Howie, I just don't, just as far as a candidate is concerned, I just don't see him getting there. Nowhere close. I mean, I just don't see it happening.
And maybe I'm speaking for too many people, but at least in my mind, so after watching Bernie Sanders kind of just tuck his tail between his legs and give up, I was looking for someone with some energy if I was going to back someone for this election.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm not speaking for it. I'm speaking for myself. I'm speaking for myself as a voter, as a citizen, as somebody who's just, who wants to see third and marginalized parties do well, who wants to see the duopoly break up, who wants to see all of that happen. That's what I'm talking as, and I'm just being like, this is just how I see it.
Yeah. I mean, we've been trying to broaden that conversation too. An overwhelming number of people have submitted forms to Unity 2020 asking them to draft Jesse too, which I don't know how.
What is
with them?
No, I'm not at all. What is Unity 2020? I don't know.
So have you heard about the Dark Horse duo idea? It was this idea of drafting Andrew Yang and I think it was Admiral McRaven. I'm hoping he's an admiral, and I didn't butcher that.
I'm not familiar with this. Yeah,
the idea was drafting like a populist left and a populist right candidate.
Okay.
To make a ticket that would unify the like 50-60% of folks that don't ascribe to the main parties. And they had cold feet about outright endorsing Jesse. We'd been pressuring them for like a month, their leadership. And it's just like, why? It's the Weinstein brothers are running it. So finally, they opened up their nominations process, and a bunch of people have started submitting Jesse as someone for them to talk about. And their route to getting ballot access, I don't know what it is. So we're doing our own thing. But, we're trying to get as many groups on board as possible with the idea that Jesse plus someone would be a good idea. Jesse's been very flexible about VP picks whenever he's been asked.
And you're saying that the pretty much overall deadline here is until mid-October. Like, that's the deadline.
It's so there's kind of rolling deadlines, right? So there's a couple this month. Texas and Ohio are the main ones. At the start of next month is Georgia and Massachusetts. Those are the next immediate ones, and then Utah. But yeah, it just going along the line from there. And then there's a bunch due in mid-October. And then there's a couple that's like right up on election day. Stuff can be submitted, but we're getting all of our eggs in, or all of our ducks in line early.
Okay. Well, hey man, that's essential.
Yeah, why not? I mean, if you need 6 people for a state, why not give them the forms early? Like,
yeah, no kidding, man. So, where can people go to learn more?
So you should go to draftjesse.com. You can see on our website, there's a volunteer page. There's also a page detailing ballot access where you can learn more. I've got a lot of questions recently about what it means to be an elector. So it's a really easy thing to understand. Like the Electoral College isn't a physical place. It's that'd be a one.
It's more just a horrible idea.
Yeah, it's an
more just a really
idea.
bad idea.
But in every state, the folks who are electors, which is what we're recruiting, they all, in a normal election, they all convene in the same place, usually like the state capitol, and then they cast their ballots in December after the election, once all the votes have been tallied. We're assuming because of COVID that a lot of those would take place online. But we've already told folks, like, the only instance where they would need to go cast a vote as an elector would be if Jesse won a state. And if Jesse's winning states, we'll have the infrastructure to crowdfund to pay for their gas or their expenses. So I wouldn't be afraid about that. I would also expect a lot of elector voting to take place online. It's super simple. We'll walk you through it. DraftJesse.com and check out all the information there.
People can learn more at draftjesse.com. Dude, thank you so much for doing this. It's really cool to talk to you. Really
thanks
cool.
for having me on.
Absolutely, man. Anytime. Thank you so much. So draftjesse.com and follow Richard on Twitter at Idriss Richard. And yeah, dude, hopefully we'll cross paths on the comedy trail sometime.
Fingers crossed, man.
Totally, dude. All right, man. Peace.
Yeah, take care.
All right. So draftjesse.com. Check that out. A couple quick super chats here. M. Berg, thank you very much, buddy. Prison stocks went up when Kamala was announced. Did they really? I guess it wouldn't shock me. Kate, what's going on? Ventura Turner 2020. I get behind that. I get behind that. You know, talking about this theme here, I hope there is a movement to draft Nina Turner in 2024. That's what I hope. I hope there's a movement to draft Nina Turner in 2024. Hopefully under the MPP banner. Hopefully she will be the first Movement for a People's Party candidate for president in 2024. And we'll draft her to do that. That's the world I'd like to see. So we'll see. But yeah, thank you so much, M. Berg 33 for the super chat contribution. Thank you so much, Kate, for the super chat contribution. Shout out to Richard at draftjesse.com. And please follow him at Idriss Richard on Twitter. And check out that website to learn more. Guys, tomorrow I'm dropping another short video. You guys have been enjoying the short videos. I've been having fun making them. So I'm going to have another short video tomorrow. So there won't be a full stream, but there will be a short video. And it's another one in line with the political parties, this roommates thing. Also, another announcement. Friday, we got a Zoom show. There's a Zoom show on Friday. Who's all on that show? Myself, Graham Elwood, Steph Semorano, the Miserable Liberal, and Jimmy Dore. That's on Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. How do you attend that show? You Venmo $5 to Graham Elwood. That's just Graham-Elwood on Venmo. Venmo him $5. Say it's for the show. You'll get the Zoom link right before the show starts on Friday. And all the proceeds go to benefit Fight for the Future, an amazing digital rights organization that I've had the privilege to collaborate with in the past. They're doing great work for net neutrality, great work on banning facial recognition, great work just on the digital divide in general. So all proceeds are going to go benefit Fight for the Future. So I hope to see you all on Friday. And on Monday on the show, Max and John from Eve 6 are going to be on the show. The band Eve 6, they're going to be on the show Monday for a very fun Music Monday. I look forward to talking with them. So that's coming up. I'm excited about that. And if you want to support the show on the sustainability end, again, patreon.com/Ron Placone. I do all kinds of fun stuff. I do a patron Zoom show once a week. That's a Zoom show just for the patrons. I do the patron stream once a week where I respond directly to the patrons, and the replay is only available on Patreon. You can download my album in its entirety. You can get all kinds of clips not available anywhere else. And I'm doing theme songs for people. Have you ever wanted your own theme song? Well, you can get one if you join my Patreon. You just leave me a comment, say what you want it to be about. I make you a theme song. Patreon.com/Ron Placone. And what are the tiers on that, Ron? It's a give what you can level. So everything that I just listed, you get all those things for a pay what you can level, whatever level you are comfortable with. So that's patreon.com/Ron Placone, a complete pay what you can model Patreon. Again, patreon.com/Ron Placone. If you are so able, I'm looking to do some upgrades. I'm looking to upgrade some equipment to get your news on with Ron to the next level. I do need your help in getting there. Patreon.com/Ron Placone. Emberg, Kate, thank you so much for the super chats. You keep this show on the air. Thank you very, very much. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Richard. And check out more information at draftjesse.com. And you guys know the drill in the meantime. Lucy says meow. I say peace. Peace.